have for this year. Several things to go over today. I'll go over a few things first. And then Deb Moore is going to go over, and probably most of you have met with her or worked with her in the past. There were some requests in those, if you remember last meeting, those index cards that went out for some training on soils. I want to try to provide that today, and hopefully that will be useful to you. So just a word of introduction here. If you attended a July or the October meeting and didn't get your certificate in the mail, tell me. I'll make a list of it. I think there might have been a few that didn't get them. We still have the attendance sheet, so we can verify all that. So we apologize if that didn't get out to you. So if you attended all three, you've gotten 2 in July, 2 in October, and 2 in December. You're done. Or you can get them elsewhere. Or, and I'll go over this a bit later, there is online CEUs that we posted. We'll post this one as well. That's why it's being recorded, so that you can watch it then. But here's the caution. You may all think, hey, it's bad when your Amish installers call you and say, how can I get online and watch that? They don't want to come here if the Amish guys are watching it online. But I'll warn you, it's boring. Boring is, if you got to sit there for 2 hours watching a video to get your CEUs, you may just want to come here. I've watched part of it and I thought, oh man, I don't want to do that. So there's your warning. You can do either one, but it's pretty boring if you do the one online. But they are available. So let's go ahead and dig right in here. Well, the first thing I want to go over is revised inspection criteria for aeration systems. This is more geared toward the service providers that do the property transfer inspections. We came across an aerator that was out there, and there's many of them out there that are pre-1977. They were installed in the 60s and so forth. And around 77 is when there was actually criteria for meeting certain standards coming out of these aerators. Prior to that, there weren't. In fact, after doing some investigation on a particular system we were dealing with, we found out the reason why the company stopped manufacturing the system was because they couldn't meet the 77 criteria. So we're looking at this saying, okay, how do we deal with these old aerators? They're running per se, but what do you do about it? They may not be meeting any type of standard. So we struggled with that because we don't want to be unreasonable about the situation. At the same time, we have the responsibility to put some level of protection there. So what we came up with is if you inspect a system and it appears to be pre-77, or you're certain it is, many of those systems you won't even recognize. You'll look at it and say, what is that? And they may have retrofitted a jet motor in it or something else in it that's not even original parts. What we came up with is the only way to really fairly handle those old systems is to test it. And we're only going to test it for one criteria, and that's E. coli. The reason why E. coli is because in the state law says E. coli is the standard for a public health nuisance. So the standard is 1,030. If you've got 1,030 coming out of an aerator of E. coli, it's not doing much. So it's a pretty generous standard for those units, but yet if you exceed it, you basically are just throwing out only half partially treated sewage. So we did go to that. We're not doing the BOD or TSS, which is all could have been fair game, but it just didn't seem fair. So on those older ones, that's what we're looking at doing. I would caution you, be careful. If you're going to take a sample, make sure you take it in the right spot. If you don't, you're probably turning in something higher than 1,030. If you don't know, talk to somebody who does. How to do that. It should be operating under aerobic conditions. This same aerator that we had been off for 30 years. But all it was an aerator. So you drop the motor in it, and it's working again. So obviously, if you're going to it's failing unless it's running, right? So it should be running under aerobic conditions. And then if you do sample it, send it in to us, the sample result. Okay? And I should also mention, I think the next slide might touch this. No, it doesn't. If you get something post 1977, and it looks suspicious. I would suggest there's a may in there. We may need to have a sample taken of those as well, if it looks not quite right. So you need to use your judgment there, but definitely anything pre-1977 is probably suspicious and may need to be looked into. And before I go any further, I did want to mention gentleman in the back of the room, Paul DePasquale. He's been named our new environmental director, so you'll probably be seeing him. Everybody look back at Paul. You'll probably be seeing more of him. Paul, what, 18 years, Paul? Yeah. Paul's been with us 18 years, has a master's in public administration, and worked in sewage, beginning of his career, pools, nuisance, food, and then lately it's mostly been food service. So he has had some experience in this, and I invited him today so he can see what we're all talking about. But you probably will be seeing more of him as time goes on. I also want to make you aware that sampling and test, some people, can you guys see that okay? Or should we?
The focus is blurred.
I think it's the bright green more than anything. Different people have asked about sampling and testing. We can conduct a sample. We are adopting a fee for any sampling we may do for those things, but you are entitled as service providers to do those as well. There's a list of people there who can do that for you. I recently spoke to someone, the word must have got out quickly because Canton City Health Department called me and said, hey, are you guys making these guys do E. coli testing? I said, yes, on certain circumstances. And he said, hey, we let them know we offer the service. I said, I'll do that. So Canton City Health Department is on there. I think they're charging $16.50, something like that per sample. So that will be available to you as well if you need to do that. Here it is. This is the one I just mentioned. If you see a poor effluent on a post-1977 system, it should have met some minimum standard, but if you see something suspicious, it may also need to be tested. And again, looking at that 1030 E. coli as the standard. Okay, this is something on your inspection form. You probably have noticed the newest revision of that. I believe there's a checkbox on there that says this system needs a service contract. And starting, we're going to get into this briefly here in a minute, starting the beginning of next year, January, every aeration system, drip system, anything that has an aerobic treatment unit in front of it has to have a service contract. Now, what you're doing is just telling them by checking that box, so you're all aware, and we are going to be working diligently over the next year to try to get the new stuff's fairly easy, but all that old stuff under a service contract too. There's a lot of units out there, and I think we all know this, that people don't operate correctly. If it's running, it hasn't been cleaned in years, and more than likely, it's not running in some cases. So that's why this is something we really felt we needed to proceed with, and it'll be developing over the next year here. So you'll probably be hearing more and more of it. As a service provider, I would expect some phone calls coming your way as we get people more and more under contract and get notices out. I also wanted to make you, I told you last time, that those of you who weren't here, and probably you received it in your packet of information with your registration this year, I want to make you aware once again, just in case there's any questions, that we are adopting some new fees. The permit fees are not changing, so the stuff that you routinely deal with are not changing as installers. However, for the service providers, if you see this line and this line, those are the lines for any property transfer inspection that we review. We are now charging a fee like many other counties are doing. There's a lot of time invested in that, and I'm sure you probably realize that. I've got Laura almost probably 3/4 of her time devoted to that program. So there's $25 fee for each review, and if I recall, we're going to do that on a billing basis, not on you pay every time one comes in. That's too much hassle for everybody. So if you turn in 10, there'll be a bill for $250 come to you. And I'll go ahead and put this right on the table so there's no question about it. If the fees aren't paid in a timely manner, then we'll refuse to accept your inspections. So if you do them, and if you're not paid in full, then it'll be delayed probably. So anyway, those are for the property transfer inspections. Operation and maintenance service contract fee. I mentioned last time about how we were working that program. I just alluded to that, and I have a little flow chart I'll show you in a minute how that will work. Jumping down to number, let's see here. Yeah, I think the rest of that isn't going to be too perfect for you. I did want to mention this note at the bottom. We did change our fee. Our fee previously was $230 for a property transfer inspection. We only thought it fair to raise ours as much as you're going to have to increase yours, so that we are not trying to outcompete you. There are certain banks and lending institutions and realtors that just for whatever reason want the Board of Health to do the inspection, so that's why we still offer that service. Many of you have seen this graphic before, but again, it's my job to get this word out to everybody and remind you that it's coming. The operation and maintenance program, how to work. I'm not going through the rules like I did last time. It's too boring and cumbersome. But I want to remind you how this will work. In the top right corner, the service provider will maintain contracts with the homeowner, and with their fees that they assess, there'll be, I would assume you're going to add the additional fee that we're charging onto that. So there'll be a fee collector. You submit all service reports and new contracts with the fee to the Board of Health, and I can't recall the frequency, maybe a monthly frequency that those are done. Then the health department requires everybody else who's not maintaining service contracts to get on one, and then eventually through our databasing and orders, we enforce those people who aren't maintaining systems and who aren't on service contracts to get on one. So I view it as mutually beneficial between us and the service providers, because they are doing some of the work of collecting the fee, but we're doing the part of getting people on contracts. So it does work. In the end of it all, the homeowner may grumble, but at the end of it all, we do get a cleaner environment out of it, because again, aerobic treatment units are probably the biggest problem we have out there with maintenance of those systems. Is there any questions how that will work? That'll be coming in January, so I'm sure you'll be hearing more and more of that. Rule update. I was recently on a conference call with the Ohio Department of Health, and also they have a website that kind of keeps you up to date on what's going on. I haven't posted as much as they should have lately, so it was hard for me to give you some exact things, but I want to mention a few things to you. As an installer, you're probably familiar with the term vertical separation distance. That is the bottom of the trench bottom to the limiting condition, whether it be seasonal perched water or it's soil restricting condition. Those will probably be, right now in this county we use 24 inches for seasonal perched water and for restricting horizons, and 3 foot for bedrock. It sounds like they're going to use some, they're going to do something a little different. They're going to use low, medium, high priority types of situations. So they're going to go, for example, maybe restricting soil conditions may only be 18 inches, so it'll be less. So that'll be cheaper. In the end, it means cheaper when it's less. So it looks like they're going to go with 18, 24, and 36, depending on the severity of the condition and the risk to contamination of the water. So they're doing that. I also heard that curtain drains are coming back more than they were in 07. Just a regular old curtain drain can be used, and it sounds similar to the old